Today, you guys, we are going to be talking about land prices, and that's raw land prices in southern Missouri. And I hope I don't blow your mind if I tell you that not all land is created equal. Moving to southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. That is right. In today's video, we are going to get into the details of land prices in Missouri. We're going to focus on Texas, Wright, and Webster counties. There's definitely some differences to note. The biggest gulf in prices we're going to find in Webster County, and we're going to talk about those details. And pretty much, I want you guys to be able to see, and this video actually, it can serve both sellers and buyers, because sellers, you really do need to be aware that the market has slowed down, and some people would say that it is maybe even a historic slowdown. I don't like to sugarcoat things. I like to be honest. Last year, 2023, we had sales, whether it's raw land or residential land and commercial land. We had those sales drop down to 2008 levels. So we're speaking about volume. But the reason why we don't talk about a crash, and maybe some reasons why we didn't see massive price drops, but still a little bit of price climbs, is because inventory was so low in 2023, and low inventory really has continued in 2024. However, today we are going to uncover some unreasonably priced land, and we're going to talk about some of the characteristics and what we really should expect in land prices and what would justify a higher land price. So to start, I want to talk about some general characteristics that really play a part in land pricing, especially accurate land pricing. And I think that especially for a buyer, but also for a seller trying to, price their property, that if you're really looking at these factors and giving an honest appraisal of them, you're going to have a better idea of what an accurate land price should be. One of the major categories you should think about when pricing land is topography. So obviously, flat and usable land is more valuable than steep land. And then playing into topography, always consider cleared land to forested land. And of course, hey, for some of you buyers, you're literally looking for a piece that you want to hunt it more than you want to farm it, and you do not want to mow 2 acres, right? So one man's trash is another man's treasure, as I've said before, but it's really important to realize that like prime pasture land, grassland that has been lovingly maintained, there's just a lot more time and money that has gone in to managing that land than, let's say, a forested hillside. There's one more important thing I want to note with that. And we see this a lot in the market, which is a savvy investor. And no disrespect, we have a client who we absolutely admire, like we want to be him when we grow up. And what he does is, he buys these large tracts, he logs them, he's a woodworker, he has a mill, he logs them, and he says, really there's not a huge profit at that point. He pretty much will cover, though, depending on the tract of land, but he can cover the cost of the land usually with the logging, if he does it right. And that's also probably because he's really specialized, and also he's doing all of the milling himself, etc. So his profit only comes when he resells that land. And if you think about it, that is not a bad profit at all. And there is no crime in that. But here's what I do have a problem with, is when land sellers or even realtors are very misleading, and even maybe to the point of being deceptive about a property that was logged. And I guess if you just don't know, you're being taken advantage of. But I have definitely met buyers who didn't even think about that, and they just thought, wow, the trees are really small here, if you see really small trees and a bunch of piles of brush, like, yeah, that was logged. And so absolutely no disrespect to the savvy investor who's doing that, but I don't think that that land should fetch a premium price unless somehow it's hitting so many other characteristics of what premium land, is and should go for, that that they're able to justify that. Probably one of the biggest characteristics that will raise land value around here is proximity to Springfield. Often we don't say it so bluntly, but really it is very true. And I would say secondary to that would just be proximity to, a very useful hub. So we're talking, a town that at least has like maybe a couple big box stores, definitely a functioning hardware store, a few banks, right? All of that, because you definitely will see towns that you can't really function out of, right? So proximity to those areas really matters with land price. Another characteristic that I feel like land sellers and realtors want to ignore, but it's so important, and that is, are there roads? Are the roads drivable in a vehicle? Not just a tractor, but a vehicle. Where are the closest utilities? What is the feasibility of bringing utilities to the land? How many people's property are we gonna have to go to get that utility easement? And then also, things like, is there a huge section of road that is, let's say, maintained through the community in which you're gonna have to pay in? And I think it's important, like if you're marketing property, whether you're a land seller or a realtor, is to really truly be as honest as you can be about all of those things. Because, let's face it, there's no problem selling a pig with lipstick, but let people know what it is. And then, price accordingly. And I think that that actually is the right way to sell land. Now I'm going to give an example of a low price per acreage property and a high price per acreage property, just to kind of look at some of those details. I'm not going to give addresses. If you guys want me to ever do any research, you just call me up and I will fully research any property that you're wondering, like, is this a premium price for not premium land? And I will tell you. We are going to go over just some basic numbers, because honestly, just the numbers and the analytics of what's active, what's closed, and what's expired paints a pretty clear picture about current land prices. Now, saying that, of course, those are averaged high and low. So within all those prices, we're going to have all those specifics that we already talked about: the topography, the pasture versus forest, the proximity to town or Springfield, and all of those details. So in Texas County right now, the average active price per acre is $5,551. Now, saying that, that's not what those properties are closed at, that's what they're being asked at. So usually there's, I would say often there is a price reduction. Something's negotiated a little bit off that price. So, and we usually see the closed prices lower than the asking price. So now we're going to talk about closed properties, because the reason why I like those numbers the most, and remember, those are the numbers that assessors look at, not the asking prices, right? So out of 62 closed properties, the price per acre in Texas County was $4,119.31. So that already is painting a different picture. Now, of course, those are going to be averages, and you're going to see in raw land, some land that is really being marketed as commercial, which always fetches a higher price. And then you're going to see, freshly logged wooded hillsides that are super remote, right? So that's going to be your low acreage price. And those are all averaged, but still average all those numbers, and we get, I think somewhere close to really what we should be expecting on average per acre, which is around $4,000. And the last number we're going to look at is expired properties, because Those average numbers also tell a story. It's the properties that asked for a price and didn't get it and ended up actually expiring off the market. So of 25 expired properties, if you average those together, you get $5,594.17 per acre. So still higher than the active properties right now, but closer, and definitely a lot higher than what actually closed. So the lowest price per acreage right now in Texas County is for $2,090. It is 114, a little over 114 acres, and it comes to $239,000 asking price. So I just decided to dig into it to kind of look at it a little bit deeper to see why they priced it that way. But I kind of already had an idea that it was going to pretty much, satisfy all of those characteristics that we already talked about. So is this property in the middle of nowhere? Meaning, 30 or more minutes to a town that's not that populated and not really a bustling, hub? Check. This property is in the middle of nowhere. Is this property predominantly wooded? Check. It's 90 to 100% wooded. So if they have that, there's another designation that's 80 to 90. So we know that it's probably closer to that 100% totally wooded. What do the pictures look like in terms of topography? This one, they all look hilly to steep, every single picture. And you can know, like as a realtor, you can really appreciate when people are trying to get pictures that look good when it's just this hilly, really steep, wooded hillside. It's hard. That's actually where I think drone photography is a much better way to market. But anyway, what is the condition of the roads on this property? They're all rough cut. They look like rough cut logging roads with not a single piece of rock put down. What is the use of this land? Well, it's being marketed as a hunting piece, but I believe it looks clearly logged. And so what I saw is I saw mostly small trees, a few like medium-sized trees, maybe like those would be like the biggest trees. And that's still small, but it's bigger small, right? Piles of brush, lots of downed like small trees. So just think about it. Like if you're dropping the big trees, it's gonna just create kind of this havoc wherever it falls. You're gonna get all this little tree kind of devastation and all this brush. And chances are a lot of loggers don't take the time to clean that up. So when you see that, that is a telltale sign of logging. And this property had all that. Also, there's not a lot of good information about the utilities. All we know from the marketing remarks is that somewhere on the county road, there is power. So that could cost you $3,000 or it could cost you $30,000. So, those are where, the details matter on where those utility poles are. So saying all that, does that make this a bad property? No. And in fact, if you're looking for a hunting piece, this would be a good one. Although I would say, recognizing that it's not gonna reach its full potential for years to come, because it's gonna be growing up and growing back. And as the land kind of grows up and the forest matures, more and more wildlife will come, and that hunting property will just get better and better and better, like a fine wine. But here's the truth. I think this price is reasonable. Their asking price is $2,090. I bet you they'll take even less than that. And some of those trees, were not bad. It wasn't total devastation. Like you guys, I used to work in forestry, not like work for like the Forest Service, but I actually had my own company. My goal was to learn how to climb trees and be a professional tree climber, and I never got to that point. But I've done a lot of work in that industry, and I know what really bad logging looks like. I mean, most of us do, right? Most of us have seen it. I'm gonna be honest, I'm just the type of character that cleans up logging no matter what. And does it take 10 years? Yeah, honestly, it does. It takes me 10 years to clean up 60 acres. So this property being 114, like it might take, it would maybe single-handedly take me 20 years to clean to clean that up. Would I do it? I would. Okay, that's just the kind of person I am. But let's just say that someone wanted to buy this as a hunting piece and let it mature and clean it up. Hey, this property is at a great value. Now, also, it's important to note, like for example, our logger friend, he's really looking to pay like top dollar for him that he wants to buy like big tracts of property that he's gonna log is $3,500 an acre. So this is my feeling, okay? I don't want to buy a wooded hillside that's been logged for $3,500 an acre if that's the going rate of what loggers are looking to buy it for. Do you see what I'm saying? So anything that's priced well below that, like $1,500 below that and lower, I think is reasonable. And it gives the buyer a place, like just like when you have residential land, there's sweat equity, you can improve it and you can also see your equity grow in that property. So I think that if you bought this property, there would be a lot of places to improve its quality and improve your investment. The next property I want to look at, it was second to highest property in terms of per acre in Texas County. I just want to say I didn't look at the very highest because it was like $12,000 an acre and it was highway frontage. It was clearly being marketed as commercial, although they hadn't rezoned it yet, which is something they kind of should have done to garner that price that they were asking for. But saying that, I picked this one because it was the next highest and clearly not commercial, just pretty much being sold as raw land. And that one comes to $10,221 per acre. So we're looking at 13 acres for $139,000. And when I saw that, I was like, that is steep. That is really, really steep. So I wanted to see something pretty good to garner that price. It was marketed as a dream homestead, and there were a few aspects that did hit that mark, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't think enough to justify over $10,000 an acre. Okay, so let's get into it. First of all, this property was being marketed as Willow Springs, right? Willow Springs is a great place. Howe County, we love it. You kind of have that nice mix where you're close to West Plains, but you're not too far from Springfield and you're really close to Mountain Grove, and Willow Springs is a great place. But the truth is, I would actually say that this property was in the middle of nowhere designation. And this is where, I think a little bit more honesty could be used in marketing, but saying things like just minutes from town and it's 20 or 30 minutes from any town, right? I think when you say just minutes, it should be like 5 at, maybe 8 minutes, maybe 10 at the most, but definitely not 20 or 30 minutes from a town. So this property the majority of it was pasture, so that checks the box of garnering a high price. It was gently sloping to some steep hills. It looked beautiful. I don't mind that kind of topography. I actually like it because it doesn't flood. And yeah, so the land, really a lot of it to most of it was very usable. So this property theoretically had utilities, and let me show you a picture of what the meter looks like. So what happened here obviously is that a homestead burnt down. You can see that the meters melted. I honestly would not be surprised if at least the plumbing isn't damaged or melted. Another thing I would want to consider with any fire is just how close the well casing was, because you have to understand when you have all of that toxic material in a home, it burns, and then let's say a heavy rain happens, that is going to go into that well and the well casing and be pretty nasty. Saying that, I do think, okay, this is just me and how I personally would price this property. I think that trying to get a premium price for something that has pretty much melted utilities. I mean, like theoretical utilities, like they were there and then there was this big fire and you know, chances are you're gonna have to do a bit of work to get everything going. I'm gonna guess all new plumbing, at least, right? So, I mean, your underground plumbing. Of course, all your above ground plumbing would not be good. So yeah, so that is over 10,000 an acre in the middle of nowhere, even though it's being marketed as Howell County, it's actually Texas County. And the utility is super questionable and, you know, otherwise not much going for the property other than theoretical utilities and some grass, right? I think that over 10,000 an acre is super high. I want to explain maybe in even greater detail why I can tell you for sure this property will not appraise for this price, not even close. So gosh, how big was that property? I'm forgetting actually the size of that property. I want to say it was 24 acres, but it was a piece of property. It was potentially it was definitely two parcels, and we were selling it either as a whole or separate. And it was Mansfield, but it was literally like right on the border of Seymour and Mansfield. So Mansfield being Wright County, Seymour being Webster County, and closer to Springfield, okay? This land had been cleared. It had good grass growing for the bulk of it. It had a building site. It had a brand new, actually permitted, which was really surprising. Like people don't usually do that. But a permitted septic that was for like a 5 to like 7 bedroom house. Like it was huge. I'd actually never seen a septic that had 2 of the manhole covers. You know, usually you just see them with 1. So this was a really big septic. Everything looked really well done. It had a brand new well that was like crazy gallons per minute. It was such a productive well. It could have run 4 homesteads for sure. It was really, really good. It had a brand new well house with all the pressure pump. All the plumbing had already been put in place to the building spot. The roads were nice. He had just rocked the roads. It had power dropped, and it had the box. So nothing else. Oh yeah, I think he had done the wiring to the pressure pump. Okay, so that's a lot of work, right? That's a lot of work done. And we got just under 10,000 an acre. I think we ended up getting like 9,800 per acre for that property with all of that development done. And one thing that's difficult too when you have this like kind of partly developed property is it's really hard for appraisers to figure out what comp makes sense with that, because there's often not any comps that are quite like that. So yeah, that being right close to Webster County and all of that work we had done, that didn't even get this price of this acreage in the middle of nowhere with some burnt down melted utilities. So just saying, that's why I think that price is off. Now we are on to Wright County. So we are gonna see a little tick up in prices. So right now, the average price per acre in Wright County is $6,011.42. Definitely a tick up from Texas County. But then we look at the closed properties, 33 closed properties, and that goes down to $4,260.78. So huge, almost 2,000 drop in the average asking price to the average closed price. Now we have 15 expired properties in Wright County, and those actually averaged $5,142.55 per acre. So actually, ironically, the expired properties had a lower asking price than Texas County. Some of the kind of distinctions of Wright County real quick. As you can tell, the prices aren't way off from Texas County, but already we're starting to see that climb up, and that I truly believe is because you've got the hub of Mountain Grove. I mean, it in itself is, you know, it's definitely going through its boom phase. A lot of development happening. It's definitely a place where you can get almost everything you need just in Mountain Grove now, unless you have like a very specialized building project or something like that. But yeah, but you're also just talking about a little bit closer to Springfield, depending on how fast you drive. I would say under an hour, you know, maybe 50 minutes, maybe if you drove really fast, quicker. But so once again, you're going to be seeing that little bit of a price hike just for that proximity to Springfield. So one of, actually no, not one of, the lowest price per acreage parcel came out to $3,421 per acre. It is a 321 acre tract. And that is something actually I should have mentioned a long time ago, that the size of your tract totally reflects the price, or at least it should. So the larger the tract, the more that price should come down. And really, when we talk about raw land prices, you guys, we're talking about anything like 10 acres and below, because it's just absolute insanity when you buy just a couple acres. And if you guys have looked at those prices, you know that even in the middle of nowhere, if it's just a small, like 1 to 5 acres, it's like $10,000 to $15,000 an acre often. It just is. So when you bought the smaller acreage prices, they really jump up. So when we talk about, you know, prices being between like let's say the prices from kind of like a reasonable price to premium price, somewhere around like $3,500 to $6,000, you know, those prices are not really what you're going to see for small tracts that are around 1 to 5 acres. You always see a higher price for small tracts. So this property, the one that's 321 acres, $3,421 per acre, that brings the total price to $1,098,000 and seems pretty reasonable. It is in the middle of nowhere. Some of the topography might be a little hilly, but mostly just kind of looks flat to gently rolling. The majority of it is pasture. It doesn't look logged, what is forested there. And so, you know, that one checks out. Even though it's in the middle of nowhere, it's closer to Springfield than, you know, like Texas, anything in Texas County for the most part. And yeah, so I honestly think that that seems reasonably priced to me. Now, it just so happens that the ones that seem to be the highest priced are seem to be the unreasonable ones. And that always isn't true. I do want to say that I have seen farmland sell for $6,000 to $7,000 an acre that was a steal. And how could I say that? How is $6,000 to $7,000 a steal in either Wright County, Texas County, Howell County? And that's because it was such well-managed grassland. The fencing was like pipe fencing and just absolutely gorgeous, and it was cross-fenced, and it had auto waters and like every pasture, and it was set up to just absolutely thrive. Maybe it had like a beautiful new hay barn. I mean, you will see those levels of development, and if you get that kind of land for $6,000 to $7,000 an acre, it is truly a good deal. So, but this high-priced one, we've got $10,643 an acre. And like I said, just like in Texas County, there were a few that were commercial, or at least being marketed as like commercial type properties. So I didn't look at those, but this is like very much residential. But I think it's being marketed that it has the potential to develop it into a subdivision. Loosely, it kind of alludes to that. So it is 11.5 acres for $122,400. And y'all, that's steep. That's super, super steep. So it does check the boxes of premium land, but I'm sorry, this price, I believe, is above premium prices. And that's a little tip that I want to remind sellers is so important, that if you want to market a property as commercial, and if you want to fetch a premium commercial price, so we're going to be talking anywhere from $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 per acre, more than what is even reasonable, I truly believe that you should do the work to get that price. At least that's how I feel. I've got that investor spirit. So whether it's actually doing the work and getting that zoning change, or whether it's putting, you know, even if it's like up to $10,000 worth of survey work, although I doubt it'll be that much, but paying for the survey work and providing that justification that this is, you know, this is for investors, or this is for you know, someone with a commercial mindset. Otherwise, I don't think that those properties totally deserve that premium commercial price. So now we're going to talk about Webster, and Webster is just, it is so much higher than any of the other counties that I usually talk about, except for when I talk about the lake counties. But when you're talking about like farmland and kind of these more rural counties, Webster is just so much more expensive. And that the true reason I really believe is that you just have that proximity to Springfield. And so having that kind of be a filter of land values is really important, because I've definitely had some buyers who are like, whoa, what's going on with these prices here? And they still kind of had a hard time wrapping their mind around why that could even be justified. And it's just the nature of cities and land in the outer layer, you know, the outer regions around a city. It's something that you'll see across the country. Now, Webster, okay, the average active price per acreage is $10,342.38. And hold on to your hats, folks. That's a low price. Yeah, I mean, that's actually, maybe not low, I'll say that that's actually super reasonable. You will often see the price per acreage of what's closing at like 15,000. So yeah, Webster's going to be a whole other ball game. So in terms of closed properties, 39 properties closed. It goes down a little bit to $9,174.45. In a minute, I'll talk about how we get to that low number, and considering that some of those closed properties were literally closing at like 15 or more thousand an acre. So out of 19 expired properties in Webster County, those were marketed at $9,702.36. So yeah, just a little tick up from actually what was closing. But just like we've talked about in all the other counties, you know, there's like, let's say if it says Mountain Grove and it's actually like 15 minutes outside of Mountain Grove, or it says Mountain Grove and it's like 40 minutes outside of Mountain Grove, you really have to go to the property, or have your realtor go to the property and make sure, you know, the location of the property, because I have actually seen properties marketed as another city than even their legal address. And of course, the reason why they're doing that, because that realtor knows that those towns get higher prices and there's more buyers looking in those towns. And we're going to see huge ranges of prices in Webster County, because Webster County is like Niangua, like properties that are way off the beaten path up there, that are like 30-40 minutes to anything at all. And then you're talking, you know, even there's some parts of Marshfield even that are Webster County. Some parts of Marshfield, you know, of course on the western side are actually going to be green, but same with Rogersville. Rogersville is kind of at that point where you actually will find some that are more eastern that are Webster County, and then Rogersville, the others, most of it is all green. And so where those properties are, and always with that proximity to Springfield, is gonna depend on the price a lot. So the most affordable acreage right now in Webster is at $4,526 per acre. It's a 92, it's, you know, about 92 and a half acres. It's being marketed for $400,019 419,000. Let me say that again. It is only though, right, 20 to 30% pasture. Really, it's about 35 minutes from the address that it's being marketed as. So you see this a lot, you know, like whether that it's its legal address or not, it's truly not close to the town that it's being marketed as. So that's always important to look into. So those are the reasons. Oh, and topography looked a little bit steep in some areas. It didn't look logged, didn't have utilities, but potentially had somewhat close proximity to utilities. So otherwise, you know, we would never see this price per acreage in Webster. So that explains why we're seeing that price is in the middle of nowhere, no utilities, mostly wooded, some of it steep, right? So it tells a story right there. Now, conversely, we're gonna look at the highest price per acreage, and that is right now $17,132.39. It is 21.83 acres, so almost 22 acres at $374,000. It is zoned R1, right? And it's in city limits close to Springfield. So that right there is why you are seeing that price, is it's already zoned for residential. So someone could just go in and survey that and boom, boom, you know, sell those as plots and make actually quite a big profit, even buying it at $17,000 an acre. So as you can see, it's really important to realize that not all land is created equal, and it's certainly not valued all the same. But sometimes just looking at a property's asking price really doesn't paint an accurate picture, because there's a lot of properties that really could be asked, you know, the asking price could be higher, and a lot more properties where the asking price should be lower. And I want to help you guys be able to know the difference. So give me a call if you have any questions on raw land. Every week we are out walking and just blazing through property. We are really good at giving you some sound advice of how that property can be developed. I have been building homesteads from the ground up my whole life, and so it's something that I have a good eye about and a lot of knowledge, and I'd love to share it with you. So if you are thinking about moving to Missouri, if you want to buy raw land, I hope that this video kind of helps you. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next video. Video, we are going to get into the details of land prices in Missouri. We're going to focus on Texas, Wright, and Webster counties. There's definitely some differences to note. The biggest gulf in prices we're going to find in Webster County, and we're going to talk about those details. And pretty much, I want you guys to be able to see, and this video actually, it can serve both sellers and buyers, because sellers, you really do need to be aware that the market has slowed down, and some people would